Does the baby look good?
Yes. Love it.
The ballet.
I know. I love that you've chosen to keep her out.
Always. Almost every day.
Oh, amazing.
I know. Rihanna inspired me.
Oh, yeah.
She's
I would too.
She started the trend.
Hi, this is One Swat Chef's Choice. I'm Abby Kenna, and today I'm joined by Ella Voss.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We heard that you slept in past 4 today.
I slept in past 4 a.m. for the first time in maybe a month.
Yeah.
Today.
That's brutal.
So I'm feeling good.
Okay.
I am, if you're just listening, I am 8 months pregnant.
Okay. That is very far along.
We're getting there. I'm ready to be done.
Is that just like the discomfort that wakes you up so early?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just like, but no position lying down feels good after like 2 hours.
And you're not allowed to lie on your side. It's only your back.
You can only lie on your side, not on your back, which is so hard. And like my hips hurt.
Yeah.
So laying on my side is just like,
oh my gosh.
I'm hating it.
Yeah. And wait, this is your second kid. Okay.
Yes.
So you've been through it before.
But it was 10 years ago.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That must be a completely different experience.
Totally.
Wow.
In every way.
Yeah. Like emotionally, physically, all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, congrats. That's really big.
Thank you. Yeah. It's exciting. I'm excited.
Yeah. You're going to have a little spring baby.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
A rose.
Oh, for Rosebuds.
Rosebuds.
Wait, I love this. That's my middle name too.
Oh, it was my grandmother's name. So I've always known, like, if I ever had a girl, I was like, well, her name will be Rose.
Are you having a girl? Do you know that?
I'm having a girl.
Oh.
Her name is Rose.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wait, this is amazing. Yeah. Okay, I can't wait to dive into why.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, to start, I would love to know, if listeners have never heard your music before, what is the appetizer to you? Where would you tell them to start?
Well, I've been thinking about this for about 3 minutes now.
Okay, yes.
And I think maybe the best place to start would be my first song.
Okay.
Because it really, establishes me as an artist, called White Noise.
Yes.
'Cause it's all white noise following me. Maybe we'll know why eventually.
And I wrote it about becoming a mother 10 years ago.
There you go.
And I wouldn't say that it's like indicative of like the music I'm making now, but like I think you'll understand me as an artist by listening to it.
Okay. Like an artist and a person, I would say. Mm-hmm. I feel like you do funnel a lot of your like personhood into your songwriting as well.
I do.
What would you say are like the sonic differences between White Noise and what you're making now?
When my White Noise and that first album, Words I Never Said, my focus was to showcase my voice. And so the production is very minimal.
Okay.
And we were really restrictive with like what we put on the tracks. And so it's definitely more like moody and darker. It's a lot of like subby bass, minimal percussion, not a lot going on, like spatial.
Okay.
The music I'm making now is very like, there's a lot more going on. Mm-hmm. It's more like synth explorative and a lot more drum production. It's just fuller and thicker. Okay. And my voice has changed over the years and like just the way that I use my voice and my tone. So like it's a little bit more, it's less shy and like introspective.
Yeah. No, I got you.
It's less introspective. It's a little bit more like, here I am.
Yeah. I mean, you would hope that after like 10 years, you've like settled into that sound and
right.
You know what you're trying to say.
Right.
I don't want to make you divulge like 10 years of your artist career, but I would love to know how it all began and where you started in music.
So I started playing piano when I was 5.
Nice.
Studied classical music until I was about 22.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yes. I loved pop music. I was always listening to music. We're like a music lover family. Like always watched live performances growing up. Like
Nice.
my dad taught me about all the 70s and 80s and 90s, just all the classics. And sorry, I'm running out of breath because I'm pregnant.
That's okay.
And
Take your
like I remember specifically reading a Fiona Apple interview in like Teen Mag when I was 12. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to be a songwriter. But then it was another decade before I was like, okay, maybe I could explore this again, because I was so deep into classical music.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to go get my master's in music theory and
Whoa.
like be a, music
Like a composer.
nerd.
Yeah. I don't know. Professional
Just
music
professional
nerd.
music nerd. And then this band convinced me to join their like garage rock band in college, and I was like, yeah, screw it, fuck it.
Yeah.
Can I say fuck it?
Yeah.
Okay. And I was like, I guess I'll do that because I haven't done that. I've always wanted to. So I spent most of like my early 20s learning how to record and write and be on stage and book shows. And I managed the band pretty much until like we found a manager and got a publishing deal and like learned everything about the industry through that. And then everything was going great. I started touring with Borns, which I thought was like my dream job, to be a touring musician.
Right.
And then I got pregnant with my first. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And I toured the entire time I was pregnant up
my
until
God.
9 months. I'm on Jimmy Kimmel, 9 months pregnant.
That's a serve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Renee came, and I was like, oh, yeah, you can't take a newborn on the road in like an Econoline van with
Yeah.
a trailer if you're not the main artist. Like,
Yeah.
like I can't really tell everyone what to do here and
Right.
request an extra green room for a baby nursery. And like,
Yeah,
we weren't at
that's
that
tough.
stage. So I was like, I guess I'm not touring.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, it's time. I have to start writing my own songs. And like it had been bubbling up in me, like especially doing press with Borns and like not being the focus and not being the superstar and not being the one, answering the questions. And
Yeah.
I got jealous, and I was like, oh, I guess like if I want that, I got to start writing my own music. So
Yeah.
I did. When I was 6 months pregnant, I just was like, I made an effort to like, started working with a producer and started writing. And then when my son was 5 weeks old, I wrote White Noise.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, this is like a thing. Like, I love this song. I think something can happen with this.
Yeah.
So really like my reason to begin my artist project, Ella Vaz, was because of my son.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just talking to Giselle about this. Like, I'm an artist and I've always existed in like creative fields, and I'm 23 and I always have this like voice in the back of my head, like, okay, in 10 years, like you might have to like settle down, figure something else out. But you saw motherhood as the chance to like begin your own project, which I think is really beautiful.
Yeah.
You were like,
Yeah.
now it's time for me.
Now it's
actually.
time for me. Yeah.
Which is not the route that a lot of people would take, but I think it's like, I don't know, I think it's a symbol of like self-confidence, and like you knew the direction that you were going to take, and like, I don't know, you just knew yourself, which is
I
huge.
didn't.
Okay. Well, that's what it looks like to
I
me,
love
so there
that
you
it looks
go.
like that, but I had no idea what I was doing. There was literally no
That's sick.
roadmap, because like, most artists, most female artists, when they have kids, they've already had some success.
Sure.
It's very rare to be like, oh, I'm pregnant, I guess I'll start something new.
Right.
As like a music artist. I was also like
Yeah.
29. I was almost 30, and I was being told that like I was getting, aging out of the music industry.
just
It was
crazy.
just so dumb.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like there's so much like when you're creating life, for me, it's been like the most creative like productive creative time I've ever had in my life. And I'm seeing that again with my second.
Yeah.
And like we can get into it later, but like many new endeavors have begun. So yeah, it was definitely scary. And like when I was putting White Noise out, my son had just turned 1, and I was like, man, people are just probably not going to listen to this if I tell them it's about motherhood.
Yeah.
But then the night before the release, I was like, people need to know.
Yes.
Because otherwise other people won't do it. They won't try. They don't think that they can.
And also, there's so many mothers in the world that like need to hear music that represents them.
Yeah.
So I think it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important to know that, like, just be reminded that, like, your life doesn't stop at motherhood. I mean, it's really easy to get, like, uber focused on your child and, like, make your world about them. And that's, like, fine. That's great. But, like, I didn't want that. I wanted to show my son that, like, I have my own life, too.
Yeah.
And that, he is the center of my universe in a way, but he's not.
Yeah. But you're the center of your own universe, and you would want him to be the center of his.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Okay. Amazing.
Yeah.
So if White Noise is like the gateway to your music, what would best represent you right now in this new era?
Yes. I think the new music I've been putting out this year, which is leading up to my 4th album, Rosebuds.
Yes.
I think it's definitely the most representative of where I am now.
Okay.
Specifically, I mean, the 4 singles I've put out are like some of my favorite music I've made. Last Friday, I put out a song called Cried at the Party, which is an interpolation of Leslie Gore's It's My Party.
Okay.
And it's a really like biographical song. I didn't write it with the intention of using her line.
Okay.
I was writing a separate song. And when I got to the end of like what I thought was the chorus, my husband, who's also a songwriter and producer, he was in the kitchen. I was like at the piano, and he was like, I feel like you could go into It's My Party and I'll cry if I want to now. I was like, oh, okay. That sounds like a fun idea.
Yeah.
So I tacked it on at the end, and it pulled it all together.
Yeah, it was a really cool like listening experience because I didn't go into it knowing that it was going to be an interpolation.
Yeah.
So I got to sort of discover like your context of the cover, but then also like your, I don't know, like separate take on that theme. And it feels like a totally different song, but then there's the nostalgia like of that piece.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I think I love it so much. Like, I think if I had gone the route of like, here's a song I should interpolate and write with that in mind, it would have been so different. But I really got to explore, like, I just kind of told my story of my 35th birthday party. I'm having a cigarette with Nadia from Pussy Riot in my backyard, which was really bizarre. And telling her, of all people, like, I should be asking her questions of like, what was it like in prison, and like, how are you doing? And instead, I was telling her about the night I found out I was pregnant with my son, and how I wasn't ready to be a mom. And so when I found out, I didn't tell anyone. I went out with my best friend and had like a crazy night. I was only 5 weeks pregnant, so like most people don't know that they're pregnant by that time.
Yeah,
and
we were young.
I was 29. I was 28. And so it was like, I was very much in denial. And so I was telling Nadia about this night. And then this other friend showed up. We had like a kind of a shared traumatic experience that we started talking about. And I just lost it. Like it was just such an emotional night. And like, so I cried. And like, there's a lot of people at the party that were Tommy, my husband's friends, that I hadn't met yet because this was like COVID times. So it was like a first COVID party.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't know what these these people probably think I'm just like this really emotional person, which is actually true. So not inaccurate. Yeah, I just literally smeared all my makeup, was crying, was like drinking a lot. I'm 3.5 years sober now.
Nice.
Which is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wrote about that night, and like, so a lot of the lines from that song, like Last Cigarette, Nobody Knows About Me and My Baby, is like from the first night of finding out I was pregnant and not telling anyone. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that song is so special to me. And this is also my first self-produced album.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
important to know.
I have a lot of collaborators on it, but like, it was my baby.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
long have you been working on it?
Some of the songs I wrote like probably within the last 2 years, but
Okay.
as far as like focusing on the album, I worked from January to December last year.
That's pretty quick for producing it yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah. I feel like most people take like a couple of years for an album. So
I feel
it's
like
big.
because it was my fourth, and I think I've had a producer mindset for a really long time.
Yeah.
It was pretty natural, and it was just nice. Like, the biggest learning curve was engineering myself.
Definitely.
But luckily, I have an amazing producer, songwriter, engineer in-house
Yes.
to teach me anything I didn't know.
That
So it was very helpful.
It seems like your background, like working with Borns and having to learn all of the like coming from a classical music background and then switching to rock music,
Yeah.
just like straight out the gate. You kind of prepared yourself to be a producer and like manage yourself as an artist.
Right.
So it's almost like you just had to step into the artist role, and then like you had a lot of
It's true.
pieces. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a cool journey.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
sick. Okay, so we talked a little bit about like the sonic difference between like the start of your career, but what are some of like your influences for this album when you were producing it? Like, who were you looking towards?
I was listening to a lot of James Blake
Nice.
and Sylvanesso,
Mm-hmm.
and then like, I guess like a lot of like classic. I mean, I'm always listening to Lana, a lot of like first and second, like a lot of Ultraviolence,
Mm-hmm.
Mazzy Star,
Yeah.
a lot of piano based stuff, because as a pianist, I hadn't really put a lot of piano in my music, at least not in the way I did on this album, where I wrote almost everything on my childhood piano.
Wow.
And then recorded it,
That's cool.
which is cool.
Yeah. Going back to like Fiona Apple, I feel like there's so many little classical bits
Yes.
in her style, but it's so her own like dark pop take
Yeah,
on it.
right.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Okay, I have to ask about Rosebuds.
Yes.
That's the name of our album.
Yes.
And it's the name of your baby.
Yes.
So how did we land there?
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so my grandmother's name was Rose, so
Yes.
I always knew if I had another baby, which I told everyone after my first, like, I'm never doing that again. Everyone was shocked when I told them I was pregnant. They were like, I thought you were done. It's been
Yeah.
10 years. I thought you weren't going to do that.
Well,
Well, my son convinced me.
no way.
Yeah.
That's cute.
But anyway, so at January 2024, I was like, okay, I need to start putting together my next album, and I had some concepts, and one of them was called Rosebuds, which originally started as like, if I owned a coffee shop, I would call it Rosebuds.
Nice.
If I owned a dispensary, cafe lounge, it would be called Rosebuds. If I
Awesome.
opened a boutique, it would be called Rosebuds. And I was like, why don't I just make an album called Rosebuds, since I'm a musician and that's what I do. I had that name from the beginning of the album process. So a lot of the songs I wrote with that idea in mind.
Mm-hmm.
The loose concept was that it was a sensitive, feminine album.
Yeah.
Then I found out I was pregnant in October, and then I found out it was a girl, and I was like, well, I always said her name would be Rose. So
Wow.
what's crazy is 6 years ago in Detroit, in a green room, a psychic came to visit me and gave me a free reading, and she was like, you have a very strong twin flame energy. I think you're going to have twin Gemini babies.
Whoa.
And I was like, well, I'm not. gonna have any more babies. So,
Yeah.
forget that. But I am literally having triple Gemini babies because Rose is gonna be a Gemini.
Okay.
My son is a Gemini.
Whoa.
At this moment in time, their due dates are 1 day apart.
That's wild.
So it could happen.
Okay.
And then my album, Rosebuds, is Gemini as well. First,
Stop.
May 23rd, second day of Gemini season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she was right.
3 babies.
3 babies.
Wow. I love to knock psychics and then they continue to be
I know.
right.
I know. It just takes time. They see,
Yeah.
you don't know how far they are seeing into your future.
Right. And it's like you could interpret it one way and then it presents
It evolves.
itself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Rose comes on the day that your album comes out?
Oh, she is not allowed to. Okay. I have
That's my day.
have 2 events. I have 3 events coming up, and I'm like, I don't want to cancel any of them, so she's not allowed to come early.
Oh boy.
Yeah. But
She better get the
we'll
memo.
see. I know.
Yeah. Wow, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so for our 3rd track,
Yes.
I'd love to hear about something off of Rosebuds that we can expect.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So the focus track of the album is a song called Scroll,
Okay.
and it's about spiraling, and
I do that.
yep.
I'm spiraling. Messages left unread. Said I wouldn't call again. Have I lost all self-control?
It's probably like the track I'm the most proud of the production on.
Okay.
And the songwriting, just everything about it.
yeah.
I wrote it while I was on mushrooms.
Nice.
And I was scrolling on my phone, and my friend was over staying the night, and she was like, "Where'd you go?" And I was like, "I don't know, I'm just stuck in the scroll." And she was like, "You should write that song." And I was like, "I think I will." And so I went to the piano and I wrote the whole song
Just right then.
right then.
Wow. Okay.
And I love the piano is very spirally, and it's there's this chromatic descending line that happens throughout,
okay.
and so it always feels like you're falling into a spiral.
I love that.
And then lyrically I think it's really strong. And then it was the most ambitious production project of the album.
How so?
I recorded live drums on it.
Nice.
Recorded strings, and I did a lot of the recording myself. Well, I did a lot of the recording of the album myself, but there's some songs I couldn't record my own vocal on. It just would get too in my head
yeah. That
being
makes sense.
alone, and so I had my husband record my vocals.
Mm-hmm.
But Scroll I did, and it took me 5 times of retracking the vocals to it.
Yeah, that's real tough.
Yeah.
Because you can just stay there for hours and just keep doing
Oh
takes.
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I would do a whole take. I'd edit it all. I'd mix it in. Be like, no, I could perform it better.
Right.
So,
But
I really
you got there,
I
so.
got there, and then figuring out just the drum production and mixing. It was just it was a beast of a project.
Yeah.
But it worked. You can tell.
Yeah, it's really cool to say that you did that.
Yeah.
So I love when songwriters become producers too, because you mentioned the chromatic line and everything spiraling, and you're finding ways to make the essence of the song be represented in the production,
Right.
which I don't know, I just feel is really important.
It is really important, and so much of my early career was writing on top of a track
Yeah.
where I didn't get to allow the music to reflect what I was writing about.
Mm-hmm.
And Scroll really very much has that. And I would say most of the songs on the album have that because they were all written lyrics and melodies and chords and production were kind of all written at the same time.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. Nothing was here's a chord progression, let's see what I can put over it. Always started with here's a line, here's a theme.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of melody supports that theme? And then
Yeah.
what do the chords do and the music? And
Wow. You should teach like a college course, because I went to school for songwriting and they just didn't like explain it like that. So I feel like they were all separate things.
Right.
And they really have to just be one. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Your next
Thank
career.
you. Yeah, it's my future.
I love it.
Welcome to my masterclass.
Well, yes. I have a couple of closing questions for you.
Yes.
So I would love to know, if Rosebuds were a candle, I feel like this might be obvious.
Yeah.
But what would it smell like?
It would probably, I mean, it would obviously be rose, but not like overly rose.
Okay.
More like sandalwood.
Yes.
Maybe some, I don't know, some vetiver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a buzzword.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I'd also love to know your favorite sound right now, but like a life sound.
Birds.
Done. Yeah. I'm going to share this story. Let's make it about me for a second.
Yeah,
This
please.
is crazy. I was in South Pasadena this weekend because they had this free music festival.
And the parrots were there.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it was screaming, and it
Yes.
sounded like a child screaming for its mother.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend and I are looking around for like a lost child. And it's a fucking parrot in the tree
parrots.
the whole time.
You know the history of the parrots?
I don't.
They were Busch Garden parrots.
Okay.
And when Busch Gardens closed, they freed the parrots, and the parrots have forever remained on the east side of LA. And
Crazy.
they go from, when I lived in Highland Park, they'd always come to my, like this like enormous invasive tree
Okay.
I had that's like all over LA.
Awesome.
And they'd fill it up. There'd be like 70 of them, and they'd just be so loud.
It was wild. And it made me sad because I was like, what child is screaming for their mom? And like, you're replicating that sound.
No.
But yeah, it's just them.
I would say my favorite bird sound is like more of like the little tiny cute birds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones that like come on your porch.
Yeah.
Not the parrots. Well, my final question for you is, who are your ones to watch? So who are you listening to?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, this feels. Oh my God. There's so many. I have so many talented music friends. I know we were talking, I mentioned Kid Sister.
Yes.
When we were walking in, and like, they're just the coolest band, and they're so talented and good humans. And they did this song with K-Flay called Spaghetti. I know that's like a line in it. I think it's called Spaghetti.
Okay, it rings a bell, yeah.
It's so good. I guess they're my ones to watch.
Awesome.
But
Perfect.
like literally, I feel bad leaving out all of my other ones to watch.
No, that's perfect.
There are so many.
There's so many. Yeah, we're blessed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Congrats on the album. Congrats on Rose.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, once again, this is Ones to Watch Chef's Choice. I'm Abby, and this is Ella Voss. Check out Rosebuds.
Thank you.
Yay.
Yay.